Barometer. When you woke up this morning, did you purposely say, I'm going to confine myself to a box? Or did you just avoid putting any conscious thought into today? When you're busy going at it, literally or figuratively, do you ever find yourself pausing for a moment to realize what's going on? Or are you just reacting? When you hear the saying, "May I have your attention, please," do you continue as you were, or do you consider the information you're about to receive might actually be valuable? When I was growing up, my mother used to ask me to do things, and sometimes her reasoning was, because I said so. Looking back, I wish perhaps I took the time to pause, think, and consider the ramifications of my choices. Good Tuesday to you. Today is Tuesday, September 27th, 2016. This is episode number 12 of Pause, Think, Consider. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today to listen to today's episode. For those of you that are on Instagram, please go follow us on Instagram, pause.think.consider. If you're not on Instagram, join Instagram, and then you can follow us. Today's topic is on attention span. For more information, you can go to the website pausethinkconsider.com/attention. Attention span. There was an interesting study that was done by Microsoft Canada. I will link to the PDF that they did. Ultimately, it was done for Bing ads, or their advertising platform, was leveraged in the way, if you read through the entire study, it's basically leveraged for digital marketers and trying to figure out ways to be effective and how you can continue to be effective utilizing digital marketing techniques and leveraging ultimately Bing ads for paid media advertising. What was interesting is the study showed that in 2000, the year 2000, the average attention span of a human was 12 seconds. In the span of 13 years, so 2013, they estimate that the attention span is now down to 8 seconds. 8 seconds for the average human attention span. It's estimated that the attention span for a goldfish is 9 seconds. As you could imagine, if you have read, or maybe when the study physically came out, remember articles being published about how the human attention span is now shorter than a goldfish. It's amazing. That's really, I almost find myself speechless just looking at the actual statistics again, to think that the average attention span is 8 seconds. It's hard to fathom. Some factors in which have the greatest impact in terms of why the attention spans have decreased. They list media consumption, social media use, technology adoption rate, and multi-screening behavior. Some other stats that were interesting. 44%, again, this is Microsoft Canada, so the Canadian reference will make sense. 44% of Canadians really have to concentrate to stay focused on tasks. And they go further breakdowns. You can read more in terms of what actual types of individuals have a greater propensity to do these than others. 45% of people say they get sidetracked from what they're doing by unrelated thoughts or daydreams. I would argue that daydreaming is actually a good thing. Helps in terms of increase our imagination, but maybe it is situationally not the best thing in the world. 37% say that they don't make the best use of their time, and sometimes, as a result, have to work late or on the weekends. I know I would certainly, if I'm being completely transparent and utilizing some truth serum on myself, I would more than likely fall in this category. As I mentioned before, particularly in the first episode, not being the smartest, the best looking, the tallest, the most creative person in the world, but knowing that I will work as hard or harder than anyone else. And that is why I have the ability to be successful. But at times, yes, I get sidetracked. I'm going to be completely transparent with myself. I get sidetracked. I wouldn't say I get sidetracked necessarily easily. I do find that I go down rabbit holes, but easily depends on the situation. Dots. Some other statistics, 54% of Canadians say that technology can sometimes make their lives worse. Oof. 54% of Canadians say technology can sometimes make their lives worse. 51% think it's important to make time to switch off all their devices. And 39% disconnect from their personal technology monthly or more often. Again, top factors listed in this study by Microsoft Canada in regards to why our attention spans have decreased, going from 12 seconds, the average in 2000, to only 8 seconds in the year 2013. A full second less than a goldfish's attention span, is media consumption, social media usage, technology adoption rate, and multi-screening behavior. To take the attention span topic a step further, because I have my own personal theories. I wanted to leverage and utilize a credible source that spent a lot more time and money and effort coming up with the statistics that back up and scientifically say and can show that our attention spans have decreased. But I wanted to do a little bit of an experiment myself. And in relation to movies and music. And I wanted to see if over time, which would correlate to our attention spans, if the duration of movies and music has decreased over time, which would essentially be a contributing factor and another voice in terms of how the attention span has decreased over time. So, let's go over movies first. This is coming from IMDb's top 250. And essentially what I did was I selected a movie from each decade off of this top 250 list. The top 250 list is voted upon by IMDb users. So it's user base in terms of what the top 250. Are there other movies that you personally may like or that I personally may like better? Yes. I tried to pick ones that were very relevant for that decade, popular, and then essentially jotted down how many minutes each individual movie. And again, to put it in context, there are always going to be outliers. There's always going to be exceptions to the rules. You look at a movie like The Wolf of Wall Street, which was over 3 hours long in terms of the total duration. That would be an outlier. That is certainly not the norm. Documentaries, they're going to be more of an outlier. So depending on the situation, depending on the type of content that you enjoy, that you watch, I'm going for general. That's why I tried and utilized the IMDb top 250. These are relevant to a large number of users. So let's go in the 20s. 1921, The Kid, a Charlie Chaplin movie. This was 68 minutes long. Not a very long amount of time, just a touch over an hour. The Wizard of Oz, 1939. This was 102 minutes. Casablanca, 1942, 102 minutes. Vertigo, an Alfred Hitchcock film, 1958, 128 minutes. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Clint Eastwood, 1966, 161 minutes. The Godfather, arguably one of the most popular movies of all time, 175 minutes. Scarface, another very popular movie, 1983, 170 minutes. Pulp Fiction, 1994, 154 minutes. Gladiator, 2000, 155 minutes. And the blockbuster film, it's been a long time since I've seen a movie in theaters, especially seen a movie in theaters and went and watched it multiple times in theaters. In fact, I don't know if I can ever remember a time. Maybe a Harry Potter movie, maybe a Lord of the Rings. Those movies also are going to trend a little bit longer, but Mad Max Fury Road came out in 2015, 120 minutes long. So if we use the movies selected, and I will post this on the website so you can refer back to it, but if we utilize Mad Max, which as somebody who watched it multiple times and feeling like it was just as invigorating each time, it felt like a fly by the seat of your pants, adrenaline rush movie from just about the opening scene. Fly by the seat of your pants, attention span caught up the entire time. 120 minutes. The last time out of any of those movies in which there was a movie close to that 2-hour mark was back in 1958, an Alfred Hitchcock film called Vertigo. So I posed the question, mentioned The Godfather, 1972, 175 minutes, almost 3 hours long. For some people, they wouldn't put this in their top movies, but a lot of people would. And for those of you that have seen The Godfather, love The Godfather, big believer in it, you can go back and remember how old you were when you saw it the first time. The question I would pose is, would, for today's generation, the Mad Max generation, if you will, would it be one of the greatest movies of all time today? Times are different. Content's different. People have different preferences. I'm just talking about from an attention standpoint. Would The Godfather have the ability to grasp the attention of today's generation like Mad Max did for 2 hours straight? or is that extra hour of time, which I think for those that have seen the movie would say it's amazing and wish it went on even longer, which The Godfather Part 2 did. Roughly around the same time, but right around that 3-hour mark. Also one of the greatest movies of all time, arguably. So we got 2 Godfather movies right around 3 hours long. Scarface, right around 3 hours long. If you took those and put them in today's time, would they have the popularity of Mad Max? It's an interesting thought. My personal opinion, no. Personal opinions, no. That the attention span that we now have wouldn't be able to hold people's focus. I can remember Napoleon Dynamite when that came out and how slow that movie felt. I remember seeing it in theaters and not getting it the first time. I think a lot of people, a lot of my friends at the time didn't really understand it, didn't really get it. Now, of course, cult classic, one of the more popular movies of my generation. And it felt like it was molasses. Now, different type of movie than a Mad Max, which is very action-based. And action movies are becoming more and more prevalent. A movie like Inception, incredibly popular as well. War of the Worlds. All action-based movies. Very fast-moving, fast-paced. Right around 2 hours. The Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings movies, I can remember watching them and almost feeling like there were lulls in the middle of it. It's interesting to think about, would some of the more popular movies of all time, which are longer than the blockbusters of today, how would they survive? Would people lose their attention? Would people have to, maybe from a marketing standpoint, maybe from the movie theater and company standpoint, the Warner Brothers of the world, maybe they would like that. Because you would need to go see the film multiple times before actually getting and understanding it. So let's move on to music. And the information gathered from here was a combination of Spotify in order to find the actual song length, and then a website called tsort.info. tsort.info, I'm not sure what they used as far as their criteria goes, but they helped essentially give a list of the top songs from each decade. And using the same timeline, starting with the 20s, going to the 2010s. And essentially picked out a song from each decade that I personally know and enjoy. Again, everything, you could sway it one way or the other if you wanted to. There is no Grateful Dead songs on here, but I'll talk about them in a minute. So, 1929, When You're Smiling by Louis Armstrong. 4 minutes and 2 seconds. Over the Rainbow by Judy Garland. 1939, 2 minutes and 50 seconds. In the Mood by the Glenn Miller Band. 1940, 3 minutes and 32 seconds. All Shook Up by none other than Elvis Presley. 1957, 1 minute and 58 seconds. Hey Jude by the Beatles. 1968, 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Whole Lotta Love by Led Zeppelin, 1970, 5 minutes and 34 seconds. Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, 1983, 4 minutes and 54 seconds. Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, 92, 5 minutes and 2 seconds. Lose Yourself by Eminem, and 2002, 5 minutes and 26 seconds. And Happy by Pharrell Williams, 2013, 3 minutes and 53 seconds. So the interesting thing about music and these particular songs leveraged is it doesn't paint as clear of a picture as movies do. In the case of the movies, it's fairly clear and fairly obvious in just looking at the numbers that the 60s was the peak, if you will. The mainstream blockbuster movies. 60s, you got into the close to 3-hour mark with The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. And then peaked at The Godfather, and then slowly trickled down from there. Music, if we were going to use the same data, All Shook Up by Elvis, less than 2 minutes long, 1957. That's the shortest time frame. Judy Garland, Over the Rainbow, 2 minutes 50 seconds in the 30s. Happy, 2013, much different, much longer. In fact, that would equate back to the Beatles' times. But I think where music is different, and full transparency, band person, somebody that has studied music, played as a drummer in both middle school, high school, and college. So in all three. So I have probably a higher understanding of music composition and song creation and all of those factors than most individuals. And what I can tell you, aside from those outliers, and there's plenty of vamp bands today, maybe not to the degree of the Grateful Dead, or Led Zeppelin's a great example. Longest song out of all of them, 5 minutes and 34 seconds. But what I've noticed, if I go through the music that I've most recently gotten into, and these are by bands that have been around maybe 10 years. For the most part, 3:30 is about the sweet spot. 3 minutes and 30 seconds. That's almost 2 minutes shorter than one of Led Zeppelin's most popular songs of all time. 2 minutes. But the even more interesting thing, and I went to a concert recently, and the interesting thing about the music is not necessarily in the time length, because live music is always different. You take one more solo, maybe you have an introduction that goes a little bit longer, the outro, you're transitioning, it's entertainment. You've got an hour and 30 minutes. How you decide to chunk that is dependent on each individual group. Some groups take no breaks, and so really it's 90 minutes straight of just playing versus each song stopping, grabbing a drink of water, going on. But these songs are, the best way I can describe it is a lot of the indie rock music. So you have to take jazz and classical out of the mix, even rap to a certain degree. Because there's still rap songs that go on. You've got 8 different guys in your group, and they each have to do a verse. you're not going to be able to do a song in 3 minutes. So that's going to be longer. Jazz is fundamentally always longer. Classical music, typically longer. But I look at indie music, pop music, and the transitions, if you will. If you're listening to the melody and the chord changes and how a song transpires, I'm going to compare like Whole Lotta Love, Led Zeppelin. There are transitions in that, but for the most part, that initial guitar vamp that they start out with carries on for, a good 4 minutes in the song. It winds up dropping out, comes back in, that's how it ends. That is very rare in the music that's being created today. The number of key changes, the time signatures in which not necessarily tempo, but how many beats per measure, potentially even tempo, having multiple tempo changes within a song, from fast to slow, and sometimes for those that are not at the musically trained level in terms of understanding time signatures, it can feel like the tempo's changing when really it's going from a 4/4 to a 6/8 to a 2/3 to a 7/8, all over the different place in terms of how they're changing the number of beats per measure, which can naturally extend or lengthen. And I'm saying that the number of measures, so the time in which a particular tempo or key or ultimately the time signature in which is being leveraged is much more ADHD today. Love to hear your opinion, but as a music connoisseur that goes and sees a lot of live music, just my personal opinion. So, in talking about not only from this Microsoft Canada study that has stated that our attention span has decreased by 4 seconds over the span of 13 years. From 2000 to 2013, we're now shorter than a goldfish. We talked about IMDb and looked at movie length. And it's much more clear than it is with music. We have to get a little more technical with music as to how it feels much different in terms of the attention span feeling shorter. So maybe I haven't particularly painted the picture with these examples, with these studies to the same degree. But I would ask for those of you that know and understand kids, have kids of your own, maybe you've got siblings that have kids, maybe you dislike kids completely and you try and spend as little time around them as possible, but the usage of devices and social media has become younger and younger. Now, granted, my high school class, 2004, was the first class that leveraged Facebook. And so in that time, Twitter has come to be, and Instagram, and Snapchat. And then you have apps like the Tinders of the world that have come into the limelight. And apps didn't used to be around back in 2004. Cell phone usage has become rampant. I can remember my first year in digital marketing that mobile was eventually going to become this thing. I didn't have a smartphone for the longest time. And I'm glad I didn't. I actually feel, in comparison to a lot of people in my circle, my attention span tends to be higher than normal. It's just a personal opinion, but I believe that my ability to focus, my ability to listen, my ability to interact and be there in the moment is far greater than most individuals in my circle. And it goes right along with what Microsoft talked about. People utilizing and getting as much information as possible through the media. Utilizing social media use. If I had $1 for every time I had somebody that I was having a physical conversation with, we were at the bar, having a beverage after an activity, or at a movie, in the example that I gave several weeks ago in the episode, The Art of Listening, and how my sister called me on utilizing my phone, social media use, technology adoption alluded to it, how today's youth getting smart devices earlier and earlier and earlier, and then multi-screen behavior. Having that ability to swap and switch between multiple apps. And so, if our attention spans are decreasing, and I would argue that it's not going to get better. In fact, it's going to get more challenging because marketers are aware of this information. They're aware of it and they're leveraging it. That means they're trying to find ways. They're trying to find ways in which you can leverage any and all devices for the same things. So, in essence, you can go from the activity you're doing on your phone, arrive in your office, pick up exactly where you are, drive back home, and pick up exactly where you are back on the tablet that you're leveraging and utilizing while in front of your TV with then your mobile device on your ottoman in front of you. They're leveraging it. We are marketers' pawns. That's what they do. That's why they make the big bucks. So what can we do? One outside example. This is a fastcompany.com article. I am a subscriber to their magazine. I think it's written in a very progressive style, which is why I enjoy that magazine. Business oriented. It's not The Economist. Not that The Economist is a bad publication, but Fast Company, I just enjoy the way the articles are written. So, 8 quick ways to improve your attention span. I find it very tongue-in-cheek that they're giving you quick ways, in essence, insinuating that you would not actually have the attention span to get through the entire article. You can read it for yourself. I'll link to it on the website, but some of the main things that they point out, they utilize meditation, ensuring that you exercise, and then in looking and doing some research for today's show, tea and music. Tea being a almost relaxing agent, helping you to relax and open your mind, and music being able to help you focus, listening specifically to classical music. I know that I've tried this. This is something that I tried leveraging and utilizing back in the school days and studying and having that. I would say that the results from it were negligible. I wouldn't say that listening to classical music was the reason I either performed well or did not perform well. But I have four personal things that I think that we need to commit to in order to help increase our attention span. And I do believe we need to increase our attention span. We all could use an increase. It would all do us good, myself included. I feel like I have a fairly long attention span. I have the ability to concentrate for extended periods of time. It is noticeably decreased, as the Microsoft article alluded to, as my increase of media consumption, leveraging of social media, and I'm a huge fan of using multiple screens. I've got 2 screens at home. If I had 3, that'd be great. And just having 10 million tabs and windows open. 10 million, just everywhere. It's a disorganized mess. Probably looks exactly like my room did growing up. But for me, that's how I prefer to browse. And just leave, I view it almost like a bookmark, leaving a bookmark. But here's 4 ways that I believe that we need to leverage in order to increase our attention span. Number 1, and this is counterintuitive to what Microsoft wants you to do, because again, they're trying to make money off of you, but put down your damn phone. Talked about in The Art of Listening, and how technology, blessing and a curse, but technology has gotten us to the point where people literally feel vibrations in their sleep because they think that their phone is ringing or vibrating when it truly isn't. That comes down just for overuse. So we need to make the commitment to unplug. How you do that for yourself individually is something you have to figure out. I'm not going to be the one to say that Jesse said I need to unplug and not use my phone every evening, and then I got a call from the boss and I didn't leverage it and I got fired. You do you. Figure out what's best for you, but we need to find ways to put down the damn phone, unplug, get away from it. The norm shouldn't be using and leveraging your technology right up into bed, or that having an unplugged quote-unquote vacation is like an anomaly. Oh, this is the time I'm going to unplug. No, we need to find ways to put it away. For me, that's during my conversations. That is my time to unplug, to be in the moment. When I'm doing an activity, I'm unplugged. I don't have the Bluetooth in my ear when I'm out for a run or a jog or some sort of physical activity. No, that's me time. And we need to make that commitment. With that me time, I believe we need to spend time in nature. By nature, meaning outside at least once a week. And the more, the merrier. There's something about nature. Something about being outside, being in the elements. Maybe it's as somebody that follows participates in the paleo lifestyle. Of that sort of caveman-like lifestyle of getting back to the elements. Oh, but Jesse, I live in the Pacific Northwest and get a raincoat. Everybody has one. Oh, but it's cold out there. Bundle up. Put on an extra sweatshirt. Find a way to get outside. I know, and there's days that I am literally inside all day. Maybe I'm in the garage cutting another episode of Pause, Think, Consider, but I'm literally inside. I've got a lot of good windows, a lot of good light coming in. It is so different when you get outside. Even if it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Some would argue it needs to be an hour. But you do you. I'm not going to say what duration of time, but at least once a week, get outside. Get into nature. Go for a walk. Go for a bike ride. Go for a jog. Go kick the soccer ball around with the kids. Go play pickleball. It's one of the fastest growing sports in America. But get outside. And while you're outside, put down the damn phone. Put on airplane mode. Take it with you. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe the neighbor's dog bites a chunk out of your leg as you walk outside and you got to call the ambulance. So take your phone with you, but turn it off. This is you time, me time. Another thing that we can do to help increase our attention span, and this isn't always possible. I talked about how I'm a multitasker. I like having 30,000 tabs and windows open. I know for some of my friends, I look at my desktop and it makes them want to vomit. It's like feeling just information overload. So if that's how you work, if you work the same way as me, you've got 2-3 different monitors, multitasking like a fiend, then this isn't going to be possible on a daily basis. But find something. Maybe we're trying to commit to doing one creative thing each and every week to help increase our imagination. So how about we work on focusing on one project and or task at least once a week? When I say that, I mean focusing on only that project. Just one time out of the week. And with your job, maybe that's not possible. Maybe that is in your personal time, your me time. Great example, something that I really enjoy and like doing is making dinner, making a recipe. I'm the type of person that, with having worked at home for a year and then going through the recent trials and tribulations that I have, the whole notion of cooking each and every meal at home is not foreign, and actually something that I thoroughly enjoy at this point. Eating out, just because of my dietary habits, it's much harder. Not only is it much more costly, but it's much harder. It's much easier almost for me to make. We need to take some chicken, throw it in with a whole bunch of vegetables, throw in whatever seasoning, and voila. But what I like to do when I'm cooking, and I do multitask. There are times that I multitask, but one of my favorite things to do is to just be there in that moment. And that's the only thing I'm working on, is that dish. I do it at least once a week, if not more. I find myself doing it at least once a week, if not more. Where, and it sounds weird, to just be at the stove working on that dish. But it's a mental unplug for me. And it forces me to just focus. Yes, my mind will wander, oftentimes daydreaming, but I'm just there on that one particular thing. That's what I'm working on. I truly do believe that by being able to focus my attention and almost forcing myself, it's like force feeding myself to only focus on that one thing. And your attention is very much like a muscle, or like your vision. If you don't exercise it, if you don't exercise and train those muscles, it's going to get weaker. And your attention span is going to be weaker, and you're going to be like half a goldfish. you're going to be a multitasking badass, but you're going to hear somebody snap their fingers and your head's going to dart this way and then dart the other way, and you're going to be a complete mess. So work on focusing on one specific project and or task at least once a week. And finally, feed yourself extended content. Go find, in some manner, a way to increase your attention span. Maybe it's listening to Pause, Think, Consider each and every weekday. Because gosh, Jesse's always good for 30 to 45 minutes. Oh yeah, I'll listen to him. Go listen to some jazz music. Maybe that's not your cup of tea. Maybe it's not your cup of tea because you can't concentrate on listening to John Coltrane for 8 minutes or 12 minutes or 14 minutes. Gosh, at that time, you could hear 4 different songs from your favorite teeny bopper. But being able to listen to just one song? Oh my gosh, when is it going to end? Again, it's a muscle. By feeding yourself some extended content from what you're used to, it's not going to feel as uncomfortable. And naturally, your attention span is going to increase. So, to recap, Microsoft Canada did a study that from 2000 to 2013, our attention span decreased by 4 seconds from 12 to 8. And said that the average attention span of a goldfish is 9. So we have an attention span lower than a goldfish. Top factors for impacting our attention span include media consumption, social media use, technology adoption rate, and multi-screen behavior. All sorts of different statistics that we shared about Canadians and how their ability to concentrate is not what it used to be. We gave the example of how movies, utilizing IMDb's top 250 from 1920 to 2015, a movie for each decade and the duration of it. The longest being The Godfather in 1972, and the shortest actually being 1921, Charlie Chaplin film The Kid, 68 minutes, but Mad Max, the blockbuster of 2015, basically regressing us all the way back to the 50s. And for music, talked about how the actual length of time is not a good indicator. It's more of how music changes. If we're looking at indie specific music, that it is changing, whether it's tempo, the time signature, keys, is changing much more rapidly than it used to. And so, for whether we're leveraging the fastcompany.com article we talked about, or my 4 reasons, there's ways that we can grab back our attention span. My suggestions would be that we put down the damn phone, find ways to unplug from technology. Microsoft gave you the reasons, and it all is technology-based. Find a way to unplug. Spend some time in nature, specifically outside at least once a week. The more the merrier. If you're cold, put on a jacket. Stop making some goddamn excuses. Focus and work on one particular project and or task at least once a week. And then feed yourself some extended content. And hopefully that will help increase our attention span. We will get beyond the goldfish. And we will prove to be the superior beings that we believe we are. I want to thank everybody for listening in today, for having the attention span to get through this entire episode, an extended cut, if you will. I think I did that on purpose. Please check out our website, pausethinkconsider/attention. And don't forget, if you're an Instagram follower, go find us on Instagram, pause.think.consider, and follow us to get all the latest and different content. It is different. I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow on Pause, Think, Consider.